Do you feel like you are constantly in hustle mode, feeling like you have to push and grind, and yet you just can't ever keep up? I did too for as long as I could remember, but then I realized that slowing down isn't just okay, it's the key to claiming your feminine energy back. So today we're talking about how you can make this shift and truly become her. Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm happy that you are here. Now today's video is a special one to me because I've actually made this shift over the last 6-ish months, and I can tell you firsthand the difference that it has made in my life. It's been drastic. For as long as I can remember, I have lived very much in my masculine energy. Always pushing, always grinding, focusing on performance and numbers, and always feeling like I should and could be doing more. Always. But lately, I've been having this shift into more of a softer life, and now being outside of it, I realize how important it truly is to have balance. To embrace intention over hustle is just a much more joyful way to live. This is what we're going to be covering today in the video. So if you are ready to move into a softer yet purposeful way of living, then let's talk about it. First, let's look at the differences between the feminine and the masculine. They shape how we approach decisions, relationships, friendships, work, even how we feel about ourselves. But here's the catch. Most of us don't operate in harmony with both. Instead, we unconsciously lean into one more than the other, especially with the masculine energy, and it can leave us feeling stressed, it can leave us feeling disconnected and burned out. So let's break this down, because understanding these energies is the first step to creating balance and stepping into the life that you actually want. Now, masculine energy is probably the one that you are more familiar with in today's world. It's all about action and planning and controlling outcomes and striving for success. You've probably heard it described as the hustle or the grind, and it's constantly reflected in the way that we are taught to push harder and to treat rest as something like you have to actually earn. And you usually don't anyway, because you actually feel guilty of doing it in the first place. On the surface, it's easy to admire these traits because they help us achieve our goals. They help us build our careers. They help us navigate challenges. But here is something important. This energy is great for the doing, but it's not good for being. And that's where feminine energy comes in. The feminine energy works a little different. It's about feeling, it's about intuition, about creating and allowing and attracting. It thrives in moments where you slow down, connect more with yourself. Think of it as the part of you that notices beauty in the small moments, the part that can dream up creative ideas or deeply understand or care for other people. It's the energy of being present and learning to receive instead of constantly pushing. You begin to attract rather than constantly chasing. Here's a quick example to make this clear. It's not that masculine energy is even the problem. In fact, we actually all need it, and I do believe that it has its place. The issue starts when we begin to rely heavily on it so that we forget its balance with its counterpart. Studies suggest that people who blend masculine traits like focus and assertiveness with feminine traits such as empathy and open-mindedness report higher satisfaction in their personal and professional lives. That's because leaning into both energies makes you adaptable. It gives you the ability to push forward when needed, but also fall back in a place of trust and ease. So what happens when you over-rely on this masculine energy? Well, that's where things get tricky. Overdoing it with the hustle mindset doesn't just lead to physical and mental exhaustion. It creates emotional burnout. It's rough. You lose connection to the deeper part of yourself, the part of you that instinctively knows what feels good, who you are, and what actually lights you up inside. Personally, I experienced a lot with the moving the goalposts, where I would constantly push the bar higher and higher, leading to a never-ended chase. Now, let's not forget that these energy patterns rarely form overnight. Whether you realize it or not, the way that you operate today comes from years of conditioning. Society tends to celebrate masculine energy because it's measurable. Meanwhile, slowing down, reflecting, or just being in the moment, being present, that's often dismissed as lazy or unproductive. This is why the root of why so many of us become stuck in the masculine-driven loop is because we've been taught that feminine energy doesn't necessarily lead to results, when in reality, it's what actually creates joy and fulfillment in our lives. The truth is, both energies are essential. Masculine energy helps you take action, it helps you achieve, but feminine energy allows you to enjoy life, to connect, to feel inspired along the way. When one is missing, you feel the effects. It feels unease and the lack of joy, and like something is just missing, and no matter how hard you push, there's just something not right. Now, here's the interesting part. So many women build what we called a masculine shield to cope with the pressures of everyday life. It's like an armor that we wear to survive in a culture that prioritizes doing over being. But when that shield becomes too heavy, that is where things start to shift. And that is exactly what we're diving into next. So in chapter 2, let's talk about the masculine shield and why it is holding you back. Now, this layer of defense is something that we unconsciously build over time, over the years. It feels like an armor that is protecting us from the vulnerability that we fear. But truth is, it does come at a cost. What starts as a way to defend ourselves eventually becomes a barrier, blocking deeper emotional connections. It silences our inner voice. It cuts us off from the flow of creativity and intuition. This shield just doesn't show up out of nowhere. It's born out of life experiences, often the tough ones. For some, it starts with societal pressure, where independence and strength are celebrated, and anything that might be perceived as soft is rejected as weak. For others, it's rooted in past trauma, in the feeling of being unsafe. Maybe you've experienced being hurt or overlooked in ways that made you decide, never again. As a result, you put up the shield to protect yourself. It becomes second nature. You don't let other people see parts of you that feel too delicate, too real. Instead, you learn to act tough, to stay in control, and push vulnerability aside. For me, personally, I had it when I moved to the US by myself when I was 20 years old. I grew up fast, and then even faster after the trauma that I experienced in my early 20s, where it was, you toughen up. That's it. I learned to shut down my emotions and rely solely on myself. It wasn't just strength though, it was survival. I became hyper independent because it felt safer not to need anyone. Then I began in real estate and leaned so heavily into numbers and performance, and the hustle for years was just the only thing that was ingrained into my head. Now, almost 10 years later, I'm realizing how far deep I went into my masculine that it caused me to isolate myself, lack connection, fulfillment in my life. It was only really until the beginning of this year, actually when I became pregnant, that I was forced to slow down, which I had a very hard time dealing with to start. But the more that I softened, the more that I realized how crucial it was to balance between these two energies. I was way too far on the other side. I began finding more joy and peace in my daily life and living more intentional. Now, another way that your masculine may be showing is through perfectionism. Constantly striving to be faultless might seem like dedication or ambition, but often more than not, it's just defense. And it's a way of saying that if everything I do is flawless, then no one can judge me and I can't fail. The problem is perfectionism is exhausting. It keeps you stuck in a cycle of overworking, feeling like you are truly never enough, no matter how much you do or achieve. You may also see this in your daily life too, with the need to control everything. guilty. Whether it's at work, in relationships, or even just in simple situation, there is this constant need to oversee everything. Like letting go would make the whole thing fall apart. And it might seem scary at first, but it is one of the biggest steps forward towards embracing your feminine energy. Reconnecting to your softness, your intuition, your creativity is how you start feeling aligned again. And shifting out of that protective state doesn't happen overnight, just like it didn't take overnight to build it. Now you know about practical things to do, so let's talk about 3 changes you can make today to help you feel more aligned, more magnetic, and more in touch with yourself and balancing this energy. The first step might seem simple, but it's the most powerful. I want you to pause and reflect. When we're in this cycle of constantly doing, it's almost impossible to connect with the side that just is. So I want you to take a moment, maybe tonight, maybe right after this video, and I want you to pause. Personally, I like to do this when everything is quiet, maybe go on a walk by myself, sit outside, or even just sit in my office in silence. If you are a believer like me, then talk this out with God and lay everything out to Him. You can also journal, you can talk it through in your head, but the key to ask yourself is, where am I peaking in my masculine energy? Think about in your life, where are you overexerting or overanalyzing or even over-controlling? Is it in work? Is it in your relationships? Is it how you approach your daily routine? You will find it when you look into it. From there, I want you to make a commitment to yourself. It doesn't need to be a big overhaul, just a little promise to find small ways of creating more balance. These moments of reflection aren't just about noticing, they're about making the first steps in towards living more intentionally and not just rushing around everywhere. Now, number 2 is something fun, and it is learning to romanticize your daily tasks. Now, one of the easiest ways to shift into feminine energy is to bring joy and softness into these small everyday moments. This could be lighting a candle while you clean. It could be playing soft jazz or classical music while you cook, or wearing something that you just feel beautiful in. Even if you are just hanging around the house, put the dress on, do your hair, do what makes you feel soft and feminine. Instead of just rushing through tasks, slow down, make them more enjoyable. These small shifts not only help you feel more grounded, but they also radiate warmth to the people around you. And if you are interested, let me know in the comments if you'd like me to make a whole video on all different ways you can romanticize your life, because there are so many. And I've learned about all these different ways recently, and I am happy to share. Now, number 3, and tapping deeper into this energy, is finding a hobby or passion to pursue. When we get stuck in our heads, overthinking, stressing, planning, controlling, the fastest way to release masculine energy is to connect with our bodies. Physical movement, even something simple, invites you back into the present moment and helps you release the tension that builds up when we're just constantly on the go. It could be stretching, it could be yoga, it could be a dance class, or it could just be a small, slow walk when you're paying attention to how your body feels in every step. Maybe for you, you're on the more artistic side or would like to be on the more artistic side. It could be painting, it could be drawing, it could be crochet. It is about finding something to do that brings you joy, where you aren't just work, eat, sleep, repeat. And here's the thing. Once you start integrating these practices, you begin to notice patterns. You might feel lighter, you might feel less stressed, and more willing to lean into what feels good rather than what feels a chore. And this energy is magnetic. Don't underestimate the impacts of these small acts of just slowing down and prioritizing yourself can have. They open doors that you might not even realize are there yet. For this last chapter, we're going to discuss the true key to balance, and that is letting go of control and perfectionism. The need for this control over everything may seem helpful at first. Trust me, I get it. It keeps things running, it ensures deadlines are met, and it keeps life in order the way you want it. But when that cycle becomes too much, it locks you in a masculine dominated rhythm. Instead of the feminine, the ease, the flow, you're left with stress and burnout and the constant feel that no matter what you accomplish, it's still not enough. I get it. I've been there. Perfectionism creates a constant mental strain There's this high bar you set for yourself, a belief that you must do everything perfectly or somehow you are failing. But perfectionism isn't just about doing things well. It's about fear. Fear of being judged, fear of failure, fear of losing control. It's wrapped up in the idea that your worth is tied to how flawless or productive that you are. And over time, this mindset wears on you. Think of the moment where you push yourself to get every detail just right, only to leave yourself feeling anxious or irritable afterwards. Instead of feeling proud of what you just did, the finish line just keeps on moving. You're chasing a goal that you just can't ever reach. And all that pressure, it weighs on your confidence. When you tie your self-worth to impossible standards, you risk convincing yourself that you aren't enough just exactly how you are. You don't allow yourself room to just be. And that is the opposite of feminine energy. Feminine energy thrives on trust, not the kind that's about being in control, but the kind that just lets life unfold without micromanaging every single detail, which is what I used to do, and trust me, it's draining. Letting go of control also means trusting in life's timing, or if you're a believer like me, God's timing. We're conditioned to believe that we need to make everything happen on our own schedule, on our own time and our own plan, but so often the best things unfold when we stop forcing them. So think, where can you loosen your grip? Reflect on the areas where you feel tension, where you feel perfection is necessary, or where you struggle to let others step in. Start small. Maybe it's letting someone take the lead on something, or giving yourself permission to leave a task slightly imperfect. Over time, these small acts of surrender add up to a huge shift. The beauty of letting go of this tight control and everything, it gives space for creativity, space for joy, space for you to just thrive and be, which is rare for us who have been so locked into that masculine energy for so long. Now this journey, it should start small, but even tiny shifts can ripple outwards to transform every corner of your life. Now, like I said before, I'm not saying completely get rid of your masculine energy, because I do feel like it has its place. It's learning the balance. It's learning how to have a good flow where each part of it is necessary in your life in particular places. All right, if you stayed around to the end of this video, then you are a real one. And if you aren't already, please consider subscribing. If you enjoy content like this, join the family. And if you enjoyed this particular video, then you will definitely enjoy this one next. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.